So the next session is now on building research and surveillance capacity while addressing knowledge gaps. The first speaker, I'm very pleased to hand over now to Trudy. You already heard her, so I'm very much looking forward to what she has to share about REDe. Thank you, Trudy.
Thanks very much, Annelies. I see my slides are okay. Just a nod is good. Excellent, super. Well, thank you, everyone. And it's just brilliant to bring all this work we've all done together over the years together. And I can continue some of the themes we've talked about in the opening panel session, which is excellent. So, as Annelies rightly said, this is about actually leveraging technology, but also trying to work across networks and accelerate all of our work and amplifying it by sharing between what we do. So, as you heard earlier, we were tasked with bringing all the consortia together, and we established REDe. And our mission was to create ability to undertake research during the Zika outbreak, but also have capacity in place for future preparedness. So the whole idea really was to these vast numbers of studies going on across not just Brazil, obviously, but also across the whole of Latin America and the Caribbean. And so we approached this in the way that we work generally within the Global Health Network. And we brought to this lots of the approaches we've been already using in Africa and Asia for many years. And our whole ethos is about working with frontline healthcare workers, research teams, working in the labs and in clinics and with the communities to really talk about what research is, think about how you can build research into your everyday practice that's in the clinic, or how people working in even clinical or diagnostic labs can think about taking their work into a more research function. And then we're expanding also into areas such as, particularly with arbovirus, is obviously with the vector element, which we'll talk about quite a lot today, I think. So we've worked through a whole set of approaches to really work with the very front line and try and build in the sense of community of working together, from learning from each other, but with this overall ethos of trying to embed the abilities to run really first-class research in places where perhaps research had never really been in place before. And so this has happened through well, face-to-face activities before we all got into the situation we're in with COVID, but very much face-to-face with bringing teams together, but in a very strong way within our online platform too. And so we came into this to lead this work package as the Global Health Network, and we've been around for 10 years. And really what we're about is building these communities of practice. So you can see here how REDe sits amongst the over 60 communities of practice we have connected together on the Global Health Network. And it really works in two ways. On one side, all these big organizations like research consortia, like the ones you're learning from today, but other groups like CEPI and Wellcome and the Gates Foundation, they've all got hubs on here too. And it's all about sharing best research practice between each other. So we, as Annelies said quite rightly earlier, we get there faster working together. And so this is a platform that's built on state-of-the-art technology for doing exactly that, for sharing and disseminating and engaging and linking up and creating these efficiencies by working together. But the other side of the whole platform is about delivering research capacity, training and knowledge skills. There's nuts and bolts, how to do research. And overall, this is all happening because our mission is to try and embed research where there is capability lacking. And this is about driving equity, actually, because we still know that 90% of the research that happens in the world only benefits 10% of the population. And as we're going to come back to again and again today, you know, Zika was, you know, a tragic event, as was Ebola, as in is everyday disease poverty. But of course, the world has all experienced COVID-19, and maybe one of the small benefits might be that the world has really recognized the importance of research and why we need to research to be embedded everywhere. And I'm going to come back to this later. But But this is where where REDe sits, and how it's able to operate in not just within the networks within the Zika EU consortia, but within many, many other wider networks too, all connected together and sharing knowledge across and between them. So back down to the ground and the front line, we have so many sort of active and real programs. These workshops we've talked about, we have coordinators that have been appointed through this project, who go into hospitals and work with teams to deliver research capacity training. And we've done some nice things like been twinning with the other EU funded networks in Africa that are working to address outbreaks too. There's the Alert and Pandora networks, and obviously the Lusophone element has been very useful, but also sharing on things like arbovirus and vector biology skills. So too many particular details to go through, but a vast array of activities that have happened face to face and delivering skills and training online as well. So just to drill down a little bit on the online training, and this is all up on the platform and you can have a hunt and have a look, but it's a really core part of what we do. And over the overall Global Health Network, we've delivered over 2 million online research and skills training courses to over 5 million learners, 500,000 learners. But the point is that all of these courses were made available through REDe to our community, but within the REDe network, we've been able to really focus down on what was needed immediately within the Zika outbreak, and then we've gone beyond that. And as you'll hear, and have already heard over the series of meetings we've been having about this, and some of the ability we can take this forward and focus down on topics like arbovirus, brain infections, Guillain-Barré syndrome that you're going to hear more about, and deliver the specialist courses that have either were knowledge gaps at the start of this, or that they're knowledge that we've acquired during our research, and we've turned that knowledge into courses, as Tom Solomon and the Guillain-Barré syndrome and co have done so well at doing. So this is serving to train, to fill gaps, but also to then disseminate the recommendations from our research in the form of training. So this is all about communities of practice, and a community of practice is where expert practitioners come together to share their know-how. And so we've got communities of practice for setting up a study, communities of practice for working on, I don't know, disease cohort studies, and then all these overlap together in this huge network of networks to share what they've done. And what we've been able to do through REDe, but through the wider connections with the Global Health Network too, is really take this forward. And this is now sort of moving into the realms of sustainability here and what happens going forward. That from these EU consortia, we have some really key projects that have come forward. The Global Vector Hub, Brain Infections Global, the birth defects work, and the Guillain-Barré syndrome particularly has come out from this is a really nice example, I think, of how this is able to take the incredible work from all those groups and share it very widely and connect them together. And it can help raise the profile of the research as it's happening, but then it can also help with dissemination and engagement beyond those studies and connect people up moving forward. Fiocruz for REDe has been really central to all of this and is really part of a huge ability for us to take this forward beyond these grants from the EU and create a sustainable future for the whole initiative. I'd like to focus down on what I think is potentially the biggest output from our perspective from this work, and this is the essential research training curricula. So through this, our REDe work plan, we set out to do a knowledge gap analysis across all the Zika study sites to ask the people working on the Zika studies, what are your individual and institutional gaps in training and skills to deliver your studies? So we set out to do that, but at the same time, we were also working with the networks in Africa and asking the same questions across the Global Health Network. So we extended that, and we also we asked these same questions at all the workshops that we were running and all the activities we're doing everywhere. So we ran a much broader knowledge gap analysis, and we asked a whole range of researchers and healthcare workers across the communities we worked in, what are your individual barriers to doing health research, what do you need to fix them? And and from that, our goal was to try and conclude an essential set of skills that you would want to be able to impart to any team who were going to undertake a quality research study. So from that first round of the knowledge gap analysis, we were able to come up with a Delphi protocol. And the Delphi is where you take your hypothesis curricula, take it back to this panelists, which were group stakeholders from across funders, research organizations, the community, the research community themselves. And then you say, is this the set of courses that could you deliver this? It would certainly impart the level of skills that you need to run a study. So we did 2 rounds of the Delphi, and then we worked with WHO TDR to run 2 workshops. The first workshop went back over all the data and our methodology with a large group of people to say, have we used the right methodology here? And do you agree with these findings? And then the second workshop, having now got our essential curricula, the second and last workshop, which we ran just last month in February, took this back to the whole community to say, okay, here is the curricula, how do we now implement it? And so the outcome of this now is that we have an essential research training curricula that's been developed through this really strong process. We had 7,000 people take part in this process. And we're now working with organisations like Gates and the Wellcome Trust, and also WHO TDR, to try and work out how we can develop toolkits to take this forward. It's going to be a report that will be put out through TDR, but also a paper that obviously is largely a result of these 3 Zika consortia and all the work we've done here. And it means it's a curricula that anybody can use and implement. And so the idea is that any group planning a research training project can use this curricula as a framework. And if, knowing that if they include all elements of this curricula, then they are going to be able to really set up fully skilled teams. And it covers areas, not just the normal belts and braces of designing a study and data management and safety and ethics and quality, but it also includes things like community engagement and finance and project management, all those skills you really need to run a good quality study. And back to our original objective, with everything we do about enabling research in places where evidence is missing, here is a set of skills that can assure quality, safety and ethical standards and security that the project can be run successfully. So for us, a huge output from this whole piece of work. So the collaborations that we've built through this project have just been transformational for us, and looking forward now to what happens in the future and thinking about a sustainable home for REDe. We were really delighted to sign an MOU with Fiocruz 2 years ago. And through that as well, Fiocruz have a hub on the Global Health Network because they want to work more widely outside of Brazil as well. So Fiocruz will be the supporting organisation behind REDe going forward, which puts it firmly the leadership in the south and where it should be, and not from Oxford, and can continue the regional leadership and wider network. And then equally, having a Fiocruz hub on the Global Health Network alongside REDe, we can further keep working to link up everything with all sorts of other projects and make sure we've got that networks of networks and amplification of knowledge sharing and all these things we're aiming to achieve. Just call out again to this research uptake piece that one of the elements of this is about taking the findings from the Zika studies, and we're slotting this into a project we're doing with Wellcome about research uptake and looking at how you can look at the situation that Thomas was really referring to earlier, where studies often end with a publication. And it's difficult to move beyond that. And we need to incentivize investigators and their teams to take the recommendations from their research and turn them into something useful that you can translate to the community and can be taken into policy and practice. An example of that on the platform is the Guillain-Barré syndrome recommendations that so beautifully come from that work. And working with the Zika finding tools, we want to do the same for Zika and pull all the recommendations that have come through and put them into some really usable formats that communities and healthcare workers can take forward. So this is a really key success as well, that we're able to move REDe forward beyond this consortia and have a long sustainable future within the Field Cruz Foundation. Another key element was showing that lots of these projects could go on themselves into the future, and so there's been numerous developments beyond this project that have led to many other grants. The Global Vector Hub was funded. The Guillain-Barré syndrome team have been very successful, as you've heard. Brain Infections Global. We've also heard from quite a lot over the last series of meetings, and there's been different awards awarded to several different groups coming out of this, and particularly around some of the work that's come from REDe. What I really wanted to call out was how some of the really junior teams who've never won awards before have been awarded grants for either doing particular pieces of research or even running their own workshops and sort of, train the trainer and further pushing out that expertise and sharing their knowledge, which is just really heartening to see. So just to finish off, I just want to really show how, which was great to pick up in this question that we had at the beginning in the panel. So as soon as the COVID outbreak came along, we put a hub up on the Global Health Network called the Research Implementation Hub. We divided that into all the different types of research that you need to happen in an outbreak. And I think this is an important point that we've tried to make all the way through, that often capacity development, data sharing, research regulations are all focused on clinical trials. And obviously in an outbreak, clinical trials are often much later along, and what we need right at the beginning is these immediate disease characterization, surveillance, diagnostics, and observational studies, and solving all those problems, especially around consent and moving data very quickly, and standardizations. And Tom covered lots, and Thomas covered lots of those earlier, but these really important early points. So you need all types of research to happen in the very same instance, including obviously behavioral and social science as well, to understand perceptions and really what's going on in the health systems, and hopefully in a very short point you'll have clinical trials to do on your drugs and vaccines, but also you need research onto your public health interventions as well. So we collected all of that together in the COVID Hub, and it was pushed to be led by the 3 regional coordination centres that we have in the Global Health Network, one of which is Field Cruz, and of course that's the REDe network. And it's been remarkable how the uptake of this and everything that's come from it in terms of studies that have been designed, standards that have been shared, groups that have taken part in research that wouldn't have been able to, bringing, say, the ASARIC standards to this, and making sure that studies knew about things like solidarity and some of the other big platform trials that were going on, and really all the time trying to bring that equity who could take part in research and making sure research benefits everywhere. So this was truly REDe responding as it was supposed to an outbreak, and we're just absolutely humbled really by the impact that this had. And what that really comes back to is this point I made at the beginning today about if you want to have true preparedness and you want to mitigate a pandemic, obviously you want to prevent an outbreak becoming a pandemic. And the only way to do that is to have research capacity everywhere where a new emergent pathogen might appear, and be able to firstly identify and then characterize that in situ with local teams, and not having to helicopter them in, which will create devastating delays, which will obviously enable the pathogen to escape, and then we all know where that leads us. So very much REDe led us to be able to deliver the response that we did, and was very much part of that, which is really delightful to report. So just to finish off, we will continue to work through REDe in the Latin American and Caribbean region under the leadership of Field Cruz. It's been fantastic working across all 3 partnerships over all these years. and obviously some of them still continue for a little while. We're incredibly grateful to the European Union for the funding, but it's also we've also leveraged funding from many of our other partners for our work with REDe, because we've utilised the Global Health Network, and that's funded by the Gates Foundation, Wellcome, and some other partners too. So it's important to call that out. But overall, the people we need to thank are all the community of participants, the community and the research community that make REDe what it is, and the many hundreds of thousands of people that have taken part. So thank you, everyone, and I'm happy to take any questions.